Hey everyone, welcome. I'm here with a good friend of mine, Angie Carter, although we hardly know each other, so how can I say we're good friends? So I just, sometimes you just know. So I met Angie, maybe we've hung out maybe 3 or 4 times, two or three.
Yeah, I think at least that much.
Yeah, but our
And
charts get along.
also, I know of you from the social networking.
Oh yeah, we have a similar friend, or
Yes.
friend in common. So I am going to talk. No, no, your background is in. What do you do with trans health? Can I ask that?
Um, sure. I have been doing queer and trans advocacy work since I was 16. I started volunteering at Lyric, which is the Lavender Youth Recreation Information Center in San Francisco. It's the oldest queer and trans youth hotline in the country. Um, I was a part of Q Patrol in Seattle for a while. I moved to Portland and volunteered at Outside In, went to medical school, and started volunteering again at Outside In the Trans Health Clinic. I started queer and trans health care nonprofit organization called Equi Institute, which is now the Equi Center, and provided primary care mostly to trans and non-binary people and intersex folks for a bunch of years, and then yeah, just generally do a lot of advocacy work for trans health and trans rights.
So you're a legit doctor.
Yes.
Wow, so if I need a doctor, I know who I'm going to.
I'm not currently practicing.
Okay, fine. I won't have any health problems till you
Okay.
start practicing again. Well, okay, so I'm going to drop a bomb on you
All right.
because I'm a astro-radicalist. Okay,
All right.
so and I want you to tell me if you have any problems with this theory.
Okay.
Okay, because I believe that I'm an advocate for people's health in general, but from a more spiritual perspective. Like I grew up as a Christian Scientist, where we learned that you like spirit kind of, you can heal your body with your spirit kind of.
My mama grew up Christian Science.
Oh, nice. Okay, so. And I kind of think it's a kind of Pisces way of being. Like I'm a Pisces moon, and I know you're a Pisces moon, right?
That's correct.
But you're also a Virgo rising, and I believe Virgo fixes things from a bodily perspective and a mechanical perspective, but Pisces will fix it spiritually, kind of. So you're probably both, actually, as a doctor.
I try to balance those things. Yes.
Yeah, it's
Can't
nice.
really have one without the other.
Nice. Yeah, that's why that you'd be a really good doctor for that balance. Okay, so this is what I think astrology says about gender in general. Okay, so astrology accepts a cyclical, fluctuating gender. Okay, so a chart is a circle, right? And the transits go around, like the moon goes around once a month. Okay, so the menses is called the moon seas for a reason. Like the moon will actually in one month cause a period and things like that. But the point is that in a chart you can have multiple genders in the same chart, and the moon will actually pick them up throughout the month. So, some charts are one gender. Let's say you have 15 planets in Aries and an Aquarius moon. That's like a masculine or yang presentation with a yang moon. So that person's kind of spirit is wholly masculine. I know masculine is kind of a political term, but let's say yang or masculine or whatever. But then we get charts that are actually both. Can I use your chart as an example, or?
If you know it, go for it.
Okay, I know it. So like, you're like
amazing.
you're like a Cancer with a Pisces moon, right? So those are both kind of yin presentations. They're both feminine signs, okay? But you have Mars, and you have Mars rising in Virgo, which is hyper masculine. So because Mars rising makes really strong presentations of like testosterone or really, yeah, Mars is just like a masculinizing planet. So from your chart perspective, it would be both very yin and very yang. And so in the chart there would suggest more of a two spirit or a two genders in one, whereas some charts are kind of one gender. So I want charts to be considered when people are making certain decisions. Let's say we have a teenager and they want to have surgery or something. I would like for the chart to be considered, because sometimes we get a person who transitions when one part of their chart is up by transit, and then later the other part comes up, and then they want to detransition, and they're traumatized by the surgery they went through. And so I just think that the chart knows more about gender than even queer theory, because we accept a cyclical fluctuating gender.
Cool.
Okay. Does that upset you, or does
I am not upset. Well, let's see. So, gender is a social construct. What defines what a woman is, what defines what a man is based largely on culture, context, tradition, history. We have built this idea of what gender is. And, some of that is based on the way that certain hormones may stimulate or what's the word I'm looking for? Hang on. The way that certain hormones will influence behaviors. And so, we see, this person who makes this hormone tends to act in a similar way to these other people who make this hormone. And so, some of it is biologically based, but a lot of it is cultural. Some of it is based on, the history of people who have a uterus and breasts being the person who takes care of children and feeds them, and that being sort of a role that developed over time based on physiological requirements. You have to be close to the person that makes the milk, because they are going to be the one who feeds you. If you go with the person who does not make the milk, that person cannot feed you, and you will have a harder time thriving. So, gender just has so many different cultural pieces, and it varies from culture to culture. In some cultures, it's okay for a person who we would call a man to marry multiple women, and in some cultures, a woman marries multiple men. And, the idea of dominance and submission, these sort of binary ideas, all come from cultures that look to binary. We are, in our current state of the planet, largely influenced by Western, white, dominant, patriarchal, sort of conquering culture that has spread its roots into all parts of the world. Colonization has changed a lot of cultures around the world and brought its influence of preferring a binary, preferring a hierarchy with it into all of these different cultures. And, it changes things. A lot of traditional cultures that have been colonized have had their concepts of gender wiped out or shrunk down to a really small group of people understanding them. There's third gender concepts in Pakistan and India, in many different cultures in the United States, Native American First People nations. There are third genders, there are fourth genders. In the Bible, there are 6 genders, There's a lot of different conceptualization of gender that we have as this species built over time. And some of it comes up and some of it fades over time. And we get, different dominant culture ideas of what gender means. So I say all of that to preface that I think surely you could see fluctuations in the way that a person presents with their energy, more outgoing, more dominant, more outspoken, more intense, more potentially combative, or more nurturing, or these things that we would assign to a box of A or B gender. And I think what I would say is that it would be far more nuanced, which, gender is far more nuanced than our medical system allows for, than our concept of what it is to have a gender allows for, and what would be in a chart. It's many different moving pieces all of the time. And so it is with every single person. I am gender averse. I don't like gender because it creates a box that pins down a set of traits. And, sometimes I may exhibit nurturing traits. Other times I may be, standing in front of a room of 400 people loudly pontificating about something that I strongly believe. And, those are all things that I embody, that I can hold, and they don't necessarily depend on my conceptualization of gender.
Mm-hmm.
I am many things. I hold many different energies, and for me, trying to put all of that into a little tiny box that has a label on it feels very uncomfortable and just, that's sort of why the gender averse is there. I'm not averse to people having gender identities. I'm not averse to people, claiming them and feeling comfortable in them. I just don't feel a need because it takes up more space in this culture than I want to give it. I would rather people pay attention to the fact that I have a lot of interest and knowledge about plant medicine, or I can cook a really good stew, or, I can sit with people in a psychedelic journey and hold space for whatever comes up. Those are more important identities to me than saying I am a man, I am a woman, I am non-binary, I am, what have you. So I think you can definitely look at energies and assign them to box A, box B, even box C, and say, I see this fluctuation happening where this combination of energies and traits is going to shift for you at this particular point in time. But I think that it loses a lot of context and nuance when you try to put it in a box, instead of saying you will be more outgoing and energetic and, all inspired, and you'll want to be in the water, all of these different pieces don't necessarily have to be put in a box. So that's sort of where I'm coming from. And, what people do to change their bodies, to take the thing specifically that you said, like a teenager who's interested in having surgery to transition, even that is limiting. The surgeries that are available right now are point A to point B or point B to point A. There are some surgeons who have a little bit of wiggle room in that, there are surgeons who will do top surgeries where they remove breast tissue and do no nipples because people don't want nipples. Or I know a surgeon who does lovely little heart-shaped nipples, and I fucking love that. There's some wiggle room there to claim a little bit more of who you are as a person rather than the box that you're supposed to fit in. I have had many patients who don't want to have a vaginoplasty, surgery where a vagina is created, if they have to have their penis removed. They want both.
Wow.
They want to have anything possible. They want to have an innie and an outie. I've had patients who don't want anything. They don't want genitals at all. And so, I think because of structural reasons, we have a limited, and also because, insurance. Insurance will only cover so many things. Insurance says you can do this journey or this journey. We don't want you going off-road and, creating a lotus out of your labia, which I think would be fucking cool, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, totally.
I would love to have a lotus that just bloomed when I got turned on. Wouldn't that be cool? And had I don't know. Anyway, I won't go into that. But the sky is the limit for identification. For physical meat suit mending, it's a little bit more limited, but still we have a broad range of possibilities. And there are some people who I have worked with who take hormones for 6 months. They get the physical changes and maybe a little bit of voice change that they're looking for, and they're good, and they're happy, and they're done. I've had patients who have transitioned, and then they do regret the experience. And more often than not, the regret is not because their gender experience was not sincere or, diluted in some way. It's because the surgery went poorly and they have pain or dysfunction. It's because the people in their life do not want to be around them because they are embodying who they are, and they're losing all of their connections with their family, their friends, their spiritual community, because they won't accept them for who they are. The actual regret for people who have transitioned physically, had hormonal or surgical interventions, where they're actually regretting the decision because they were incorrect about their gender decision, is so minuscule.
Okay.
Most of the time, it's cultural pressures or physical pain or dysfunction. It didn't turn out the way that I thought it would. Now I feel horrible. I might as well go back to what I had. I'm never going to fit in because I will never look like a woman. So it's cultural pressure so much more than anything else. And what I would love to see is a change in the culture that allows people to be whoever the fuck they are. And, bringing it back to the chart piece, like, what a cool thing to be able to say to a set of parents, hey, your kid has a lot of varying energies. They may have a more dynamic gender journey. These are some of the things that you might be able to do to prepare yourself to support this person in a meaningful way as they navigate their journey, and allow them to have a wide berth in their exploration of gender. Like, this is what's coming for you and your kid and your family. Here are some tools and resources so that you can do it well without injuring your child by making judgments about which box they're supposed to fit in.
Beautiful. So just building on what you're saying, oh, this is so liberating to hear you speak about this. It's like, so in ancient theory, there was four, because astrology is actually development theory. The ancients would treat people like a plant. They say, what is growing here? And then we would try to tend to the plant so it grows in this beautiful, bountiful way. And so they would say there's four influences on a growing creature. There's genetics, or your seed. And so here in gender, that would be XX, XY chromosomes. There's X broken X, XYY, there's XXY. There's actually non-binary seed options. And then there's culture, climate, and then the chart, okay? Well, I think by talking about this cyclical fluctuating gender, we're actually opening up the culture to get out of this binary thinking and saying that, like, kind of what you're saying is that there's all these myriad of options of gender, not just one or two. I think the astrology layer does blow open the binary from a cultural perspective, and that's why I do want to be vocal about this piece, because I want to keep breaking down the binary nature of our culture. For example, now I'm going to use my chart, not because I'm a narcissist, but because I have permission.
Yeah.
So, I look like a cis straight female, but my chart is actually what I would call a three spirit. The 6th degree is very feminine, the 14th degree is very feminine, and my 28th degree is extremely masculine. Like, if I can go tougher than any dude you ever met. Like, and I go up against the guys in my field constantly. They think I'm this, they'll treat me like a doll. I'm always like, oh, doll time. Is it doll time? And then I'm just like, rawr, my 28th degree just goes bam. It's like, oh, I've gotten so mad at them that I wrote whole books to fix things in the field and things like that. But my 28th degree is hyper masculine. And so I would actually call myself a three spirit, right? And so I know that's actually, some people say I'm appropriating two-spiritism in that theory, but I'm actually saying the ethos of the two-spirit philosophy knows what the chart knows. Like, there are two spirits, there are three spirits, there are charts with four genders in there, we can get up to 4 or 5 poles of a human in one chart. So that's why I do want to keep talking about it, is to blow open this idea that there are only 2 gender options, and that also, another time I've seen this be really helpful is like, let's say I've had several friends who have transitioned very successfully, and they pass as they want to, except on certain transits to the more, the other gendered part of their chart, and then they get called the wrong pronoun and stuff, and I'm like, it's your vibes, you're throwing off vibes of the other gender, and it's kind of interesting to watch people shapeshift energetically from total yang vibe to yin vibe. And that's what you're saying, like extrovertism to introvertism, and like there are other things we can talk about other than gender, absolutely. But I do think it's interesting to watch a person's energy shapeshift throughout the transits, and know that even if you surgically change the body, that the energy body still, it's epigenetic. It's like sits on your genetics. They would call your chart Genesis. It's actually your spiritual genesis. It's like having a spiritual genetic code. So I just think vibes are so interesting. How people throw off yin and yang vibes no matter what surgeries they've had. So.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is code shifting, code switching, In order to be recognized, read, clocked as the gender that I am aiming for, I must perform a certain way publicly to be received in such a way that people will interpret me as having this gender identity and, this sex. And again, very cultural. I would just love to soften the edges. Like, okay, why is it that people who are assigned female have to act a certain way to be correct, to be a woman in the right way? Why is it about right and wrong? Why is it not just, this is my identity, I am a woman, and this is how I act in the world? It doesn't matter necessarily the way that I act, because this is the identity that I claim. I would just like to make it softer and easier for people to have whatever expression they have and still be recognized and honored for the gender that they choose. And I will take this is maybe, I don't know. I have had multiple patients who have what Western dogma psychology would call dissociative identity disorder, where they are a group. They are in one person, in one body. They are multiple energies, multiple people. And sometimes one person will front and sometimes another person will front. And most of the time, most of the people that I know have multiple genders within the system. And sometimes a person is, oh, hello, please don't poop on me.
We got a crow.
Sometimes people will front a person who is male, and sometimes they'll front a person who is female, and sometimes they'll front a person who is non-binary. Sometimes they'll front a robot. It's completely variant. And so, that person is a multitude within and has multiple different energies because they're multiple people. Now, Western psychology would say they are a fragmented, fractured multiplicity of one. That's not necessarily how those people experience it. But, those people each have their own energies, their own presentation, their own communication style, their own preferences around who they love. I mean, it's so wildly different. And, within that system, all of those people have to come to terms. If there is a part of that system that wants to be physically different, if there is a transition process that one or more of the system wants to experience, they all have to get together and figure out how that's going to work.
Wow.
And so, there is a spiritual piece and a physical piece and an identity piece, and they're all kind of interplaying with each other, but they're different. And you can also be a person who transitions with hormones and surgery, but never has a social transition. You still use. I had a patient who came to me for hormone therapy, and she wanted to use she/her pronouns with me and her significant other, but with everyone else she used he/him. She never changed her appearance. She had a shaved head, short stubble. She wore what we would traditionally call men's clothing. She didn't want to have a social transition. She just wanted her body and her experience of hormones to be different. And it didn't change who she was physically, except for the hormonal changes. I mean, the social piece, I should say, didn't change who she was socially, but she felt more aligned with herself.
Wow.
So all of these pieces come into play together. And, oh, come on, I lost my train of thought. I was thinking about the crow above me.
Well, I can say that the chart actually, in the multiple personalities case, we can see that. We can see all the personalities in the chart usually, and I do consider those people to be an integrated human. They are actually playing out other aspects of personality beautifully, and you actually bring up exactly what I'm kind of saying is that, sometimes one of those aspects of personality wants to transition because it's definitely of a certain gender, and and then the other aspects of personality kind of have to meld in with that. It becomes an integration journey, right? And I think you and I are really on the same page of like, letting people be exactly who they are at the level of complexity that, like I bet you would really not get a kick out of, but like you wouldn't have any problem looking at their charts. You'd be like, oh, and let's take a look at the chart. I mean, maybe not. It would depend on what astrologer you're talking to, right? Like we want an astrologer who gets it. But I think having the chart in the mix would not be a detriment. It would be an asset.
Yeah, I mean, it is, looking at a chart can be a reflection of what is in your mind. Like, I'm looking at this is, you would tell me this is what this means, and I could reflect off of that and understand myself better. So it could be helpful in helping people figure out whatever their gender journey might be.
I guess maybe I would revise my proposal to say, if a person already resonates with astrology, then including the chart into the gender journey is a total win. If astrology is not resonant for them, then maybe not,
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to me. Yeah. I don't see why not.
Okay. Do you think that's an anti-trans theory?
I mean, anything can be anti-anything depending on how you wield it.
That's true. That's true.
You can make beautiful knowledge and people can take that and twist it. I mean, look at Christianity in a lot of ways.
That's true. I guess if it was put up as a barrier, because my initial supposition was kind of like, please look at the chart before you make permanent decisions. And so another friend of mine who's, has a vested interest in these things said, well, that's just another oppressor getting in the way of me wanting to have my surgery. And so I listened to that and I said, okay, maybe it shouldn't be required. Maybe it should just be something. I would like trans people all over the world to know that looking at the chart might be just an additional awesome thing in your gender journey.
Yeah, it could be a useful tool.
Yeah.
And, different tools can be used at different moments for different things. Sometimes it's the right tool, sometimes it's not. The way that I have done hormone therapy is informed consent. These are the things that are going to happen to you. These are the things that are not. These are the things you can expect. These are the things that, maybe you expect, but you can't actually, expect these things. Let's talk about your wishes, your hopes, your dreams. Let's make sure that you're clear what you actually can achieve and what is not achievable. Let's talk about what gender means to you. That's a really big piece. It means different things to every single person. And so I think that bringing a chart in as a tool to understand one's own self in the process of discovering one's gender and understanding it and clarifying it could be helpful. I think using it as a barrier to access, that's informed consent is a very low barrier way of providing hormone therapy care. It says, here are the rules. Here's the testing we need to do to make sure your body is safe. Here are the impacts and the effects. You will get more red blood cells. You will have your voice go deeper. You will grow more body hair. All of these things. Is this what you want? Let's talk through it. Let's make sure that you're really clear that this is what you want. Also, you can stop anytime. If you're done, you're done. We're good. We don't have to keep going. So we do the informed consent, we talk through it, and then I say, here's a prescription. Let's get started. Come and talk to me in a month, and let's see how things are going.
Well, one thing I'm going to take from our conversation today is that astrology is a tool in the mix, and a tool can be used. A hammer can be used to, build a house, or can be used. It can be dropped on your foot and hurt your break your toe. Like, we don't want the astrology chart to ever be used as a barrier to a person, being happy and healthy. We just want to add it into the mix as one tool that could really build a strong human, a strong plant, a strong
Yeah.
life.
Helps you understand yourself, your path, what you want, what you don't want. And I mean, everything is based on, like, what does your gut say? Does this seem aligned to you? Does this feel right? If it doesn't, let's talk about that. Maybe there's something we're missing,
Nice.
So, yeah, I don't see why you could not integrate it in to be a useful piece of the process for people who have an understanding and appreciate the use of it for other aspects of their life. Why not?
Nice. Well, this has been great. Anything you want to add?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you,
Hi,
Angie.
Mom.
Free
Hi,
Palestine.
Mom.
Free Palestine. Nice. All right.